Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much, everyone who's joining us here in person or online. We are the Kansas City Theater Safety Initiative, KCTSI, and this is our first public forum. So we're very grateful for everyone who's here to start launching this initiative. We've been around for a couple of years, but this is our first public event. So this is a really important work we're going to tackle today and beyond. So to get started, we're just gonna kind of do a few introductions. We'll go down the line and introduce ourselves individually first of all, and then kind of go from there. So Coleman, would you mind starting us off by introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm not sure how well you'll hear me on Zoom, but I'm Coleman Crenshaw.
Oh, yeah, microphone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there we go. We got microphones for this.
My name's Coleman Crenshaw. And I'm kind of moderating the Zoom for you and answering questions over there on the Q&A function.
My name is Caitlin Barron, and I am monitoring the Google form and anonymous text for this as well. If you'd like to ask any questions in the room or elsewhere that you either would like to submit it anonymously or would like one of us to handle, you've got you.
Hi, I'm Ashton Botts. I will be keeping track of our time today to make sure that we move through our agenda in a timely manner.
I'm Connor Eastman. I'm the main person attached to the document, kind of the document lead. So I can't promise that means I'll be able to answer every single one of your questions personally, because it's a very in-depth and complex document, but I've got the main eyes on it. So structure-wise, content-wise, that's me.
Grab it and I'll do the finagle.
No, you're good. I'm Casey Jane. I'm generally kind of the spearhead of this initiative, and I just make sure that everything gets done at the end of the day. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Ahafia. I'm brand new to the committee for KCTSI, so I'm excited to be here and support.
Hello, I'm Natalie Marola, and I've been a part of this initiative from the beginning. So I think like 2023 or so is when we started this. So been here since the beginning, been an editor and helping just work through some of those little details in the document. And today I'll be reading through the history section.
Hi, I'm Heather Holt. I've also been with the committee since the beginning. I feel like I'm more just a vibe in the room.
We're all here.
Which is and just here, but for today I'll be helped with moderating. So you ask your question and then I'll just repeat it louder so that make sure that everyone can hear it. Yeah, so we go ahead into the form decorum stuff. All right. So just to go over kind of the expectations or set the tone for the day is our forum decorum. To ensure a respectful, inclusive, and productive environment for all participants, we ask that everyone follow these general rules during the forum. Use facilitators to ask questions. Please direct your questions to KCTSI's facilitators, wait to be called on before speaking to help maintain order and ensure everyone has the opportunity to participate. Maintain a respectful atmosphere. To allow all voices to be heard and preserve the forum as a neutral space, we ask that you refrain from clapping, cheering, booing, or otherwise reacting audibly to speakers. Keep the forum free from personal complaints. This forum is not the appropriate space to discuss complaints against individuals or theater companies. We ask all participants to respect this boundary and focus on broader constructive dialogue related to KCTSI guidelines. Stay on schedule. In the interest of time and fairness, the committee may move the conversation forward to cover all planned topics. We appreciate your understanding and cooperation. If we do not address your question or concern, please submit your comment in writing for future consideration by the committee. Speak from personal experience. When offering examples or perspectives, please speak from your own experience rather than sharing or interpreting someone else's. This helps maintain clarity and accountability in the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. I'm very grateful for this committee personally, because this was just sort of a dream that I had as a reaction to an incident, which we will get into, in 2022. And so the fact that this entire team is up here with me today, I'm very, very proud and I'm very, very grateful for all of them. So thank you all for being here as well. Okay, so one more thing I wanted to mention. I mentioned it before we got started, but for our folks on Zoom, if you want to access the Q&A feature, the information has been put in the chat, but you can also click the three dots, I think, at the bottom of your Zoom screen to access the instructions on how to access the Q&A. And just for our folks in the room, unfortunately on Zoom, we don't have snacks for you, but if you're in the room, we have snacks and water for you over there. We will be taking 5-minute breaks as we go throughout the day too. So feel free to get up anytime you need to, but just know there are built-in breaks as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. If you would like to access certain materials today, here are some QR codes. The most important ones are really where it says today's abridged document. Again, we also have prints for our people in the room. We have printed copies over here, as well as pencils, things if you want to mark stuff up. Feel free to take those home with you. Also feel free to take flyers and stuff if you have a way to distribute those. But the today's abridged document is what we'll be referring to as we go through. The online feedback form is the same form that we have printed over there as well. So if you'd like to submit feedback, you have a lot of options. You can make it anonymous or not. You can write it down. You can send it to us digitally. And you can also text it to us via Google Voice. So reach out to us with any comments, questions, concerns that you may have. And there's our website if you'd like to learn anything else. Okay. So today what we're going to be doing, we'll start by introducing the initiative. Hopefully at this point you kind of get a sense of what we're doing, but it is kind of new territory. So I want to make sure that everyone understands the specifics of what we're doing here. We'll start breaking down the document, going through section 1, which is the first 13 pages, I believe, of the full document, but we have a 9-page abridged version. I apologize that I couldn't abridge it more. But it's a lot of, useful information. It's a lot and it's important. So the sections we'll be going through today are the statement of purpose, the history, the mission and vision statement, how to use this document, and the path to resolution. And we will stop for discussion after each section. And generally today is about brainstorming community efforts and ideas. Once we get through all of our parts of the section 1, we will have time for like general Q&A, like for example, people who may be reaching out to us on the Zoom. But in general, the whole day is really in purpose of brainstorming community efforts and ideas. All right, so we're gonna start with introducing the initiative. So what is KCTSI? And I am just gonna kind of read this to you off a piece of paper, but it'll give you a gist if you don't already know. And here's the information up here as well. And if you need to, we do have access to the QR codes on the screen throughout the slideshow as well. Can everyone see the slideshow okay? Yeah, I know we might have a little bit of a block here, so just let us know if you have trouble seeing it. Okay, so the Kansas City Theater Safety Initiative, or KCTSI, refers to 3 things: the community agreement document, the committee of volunteers that you see here today, and the social movement. And actually, before I go on, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention one thing. We do have 2 more committee members who just couldn't join us today. Terrace Wyatt Jr. and Emmy Panzica Piontek are our other 2 members who unfortunately just couldn't join us. So KCTSI refers to 3 things: the document, the committee of volunteers, and the social movement. The community agreement is a resource and living document providing a set of standards and best practices for the production of safe, effective, and well-considered theater. KCTSI was formed in 2023, and in January 2025, we launched the first draft of the community agreement, which you all have an abridged version of in front of you. We will be workshopping the agreement in public forums throughout the year, perhaps beyond this year, seeking direct feedback on the initiative. We aim to unite theater artists and companies in an effort to build a safer and more transparent future. Please get involved by joining our email list and our Facebook group, attend future public forums, contribute your feedback online. There are lots of ways that you can get involved, and we're hoping that everyone in the theater community will contribute their voice and help us grow this important initiative. So we're not going to take questions just yet. We'll go ahead and get into the actual document now. So breaking down section 1, starting with the statement of purpose, and that's to our friend Hillary.
Starting off, it's the purpose of the document is to make sure that artists who are passionate and dedicated are properly rewarded for their time, to make sure that we go against the Midwest austerity of problem solving, so just kind of taking the problem and swallowing it and holding it down and pushing it away. We find ourselves subject to a lack of transparency, expectation to suck it up, and accept abusive, intolerant situations, inherent class distinctions, and a system that pits the lower workers against each other, while the higher community leaders walk away with everything. To help with the fear of being blacklisted by one person or company, it resonates through our small community. The culture of withholding secrets has often accumulated in individual suffering and often loss of life. This is not a healthy dynamic for an artistic community that wants to grow, thrive, and reach its full potential. The following is not a legal document, but it is a living document to serve as a vehicle for artists and workers in the community to have their own set of workable, practical standards and an avenue to follow if they feel unsafe or unheard in any way. So, open up for questions.
Yeah, so now we can open it up for discussion.
I have to make a congratulatory comment about the culture of Midwest austerity and problem swallowing. I like the word culture. It's a very strong word to kind of describe what that means and what that is. And then I think the suck it up thing is really, really important because of how we're a mid-tier / lower tier market, in the sense that we don't have as many theater companies within our 500,000 size city versus like Chicago or New York. You can maybe find pockets and neighborhoods of places to stay in. Your name just kind of gets around from a community theater all the way up to a professional theater perspective. And then I think last but certainly not least, I love that it's a living document and not a set in stone document, because similar to our US Constitution, if only we could refine and update this document as we keep dealing with different people and different generations in our system. So thank you all very much. This is really impressive.
And just to recap for on the Zoom, just a kudos for calling out specific things that are pertaining to us in the Midwest, as well as that this living document, meaning that it is not set in stone, as we know that life ebbs and flows.
Great.
Yep.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
And I will say too, that the full document does go into, I'm not sure if it's the statement of purpose section, I think it might be comparing us specifically to like bigger cities, like understanding that Kansas City is kind of a unique little, we have a unique little culture here, but
It is part of this section, I think.
this section, yeah, I think so too, yeah, and then that can be accessed online.
There's a. To me, it's always felt artistically in America, everything is trying to be funneled to one of two coasts. And that leads to brain drain and talent drain from cultured pockets of the country, because everyone's trying to advertise themselves to two different places essentially, and also to just move there outright. And that affects not only the kind of talent that you have in spaces that are important to have them, but it also affects the culture countrywide. That's what creates the hierarchy to me personally, is this idea that all the resources, all the time, all the attention is in two locations in a huge country. So that's important to me personally, is the idea of trying to break down that hierarchy and that idea that it's okay and preferable to have more pockets of creativity in the country that are supportive and that give you other avenues besides, you know, potentially selling your soul or whatever it takes to make it on a national level. Local level is just as important.
And I'll say too, we have on the slideshow, but it wasn't in the abridged version, that part of what the purpose of this document is to tackle, or is to fill the gap where equity may not reach, because of course, not every actor, not every artist is part of a union. So that's kind of the gap that we want to fill a little bit too, is addressing people who don't otherwise have a union who has their back.
Any other questions, comments?
In regards, this is from Zoom. from Katie. In regards to the second bullet point, my question is also in regards to the scarcity mindset in our community.
Scarcity in what sense?
Yeah, what was the question? What do you think? Like my question was-
Katie, what is the question specifically? Scarcity of work?
Scarcity.
Yeah, just in general. Yeah, I think that contributes to all of it, right? Like that's part of.
Scarcity of support.
Maybe opportunities too.
Yeah.
Yeah. People. This is a highly individualistic part of the country, which I think leads to that. We all think, well, I'm a good person, or I'm a good enough person that I can have these standards personally, and I'll just, I'll just give them out in my own personal life. Which is great if you're just on your own in a one-to-one conversation with someone, but I think it requires in part a mindset change away from that kind of individualism, even though individualism also has its positives. And to move it toward a more community-oriented, more socially oriented kind of dynamic. I don't know if that answers it, but.
Katie says, we don't have safe pathways of reporting when things cause trauma responses in our work. So I wonder if this is something that KCTSI would be able to work with our community.
To reporting specifically? Yeah, I mean, that's a big question that we have. So a lot of what we're doing here is figuring out what we can do here, right? And the accountability factor, that's why we very intentionally say we're a living document, not a legal document, right? Because we're not operating under the auspices of being a legal reporting agency. However, that does seem to be something that people really want is to share their personal experiences in a very specific way. Just we've already had a few people even reach out to us and say, hey, can you guys help me with a specific issue with a specific theater? And, at this point, we're not equipped just because we're still developing what we even can do. But that does seem across the board to be something that people really do want. So we hear that. I think we kind of need some community feedback and help to understand how we could even do that. Yeah.
I'll speak from my recent experience working with KC Public Theater, is that they had everyone.
Oh, I'm sorry, our doors seem to be locked. Oh, there we go, okay. Sorry about that.
Get a term and.
Yeah, it's open doors.
But it was just a comment from personal experience that KC Public Theater, I think, worked with them recently. That was my first time. It was very impressive. That they had everyone on the board was copied into, it was just a stage reading, but that had even just have a report in their own document. If you feel uncomfortable with anyone, this is who you report to. So that's something like that, but that's just an example we can use.
Yeah, and one of our committee members is on the board as well.
Yes, I was gonna say, yeah, Emmy Hanzika-Piontek is a board member of KC Public Theater, and in general, we do really respect a lot of what KC Public Theater has going on. In fact, one of our templates in the document, the anti-harassment, I believe, is drawn directly from KC Public Theater. And yeah, having pathways to reporting is part of what we get into with this document, but it's more internal with sort of the option of sharing the information with KCTSI. And of course, a lot of institutions already have things in place as well. Like we've talked to Jonathan Marshall with the Coterie. He reached out to say, kind of like, can we talk about, I don't think it's that maybe. Jonathan Thomas, oh my God.
I was like, who's Jonathan Marshall?
I'm so sorry. Oh, Jonathan, if you're listening, I'm so sorry. I knew it. I worked for Jonathan Marshall years ago. Anyway, Jonathan Thomas spoke to me about how companies who have done a lot of work to talk about internal reporting, how they can go about sharing that information. So that's something that I think we can explore as well.
I have just a quick question for myself. What is the difference between the statement of purpose and the mission and vision statement?
I mean, other than the fact that so in the abridged version here, you can see that it's all bullet points basically because it's an abridged version. In the larger document, the statement of purpose is phrased more in a paragraph form and the mission and vision statement is exactly as you see it here. as far as I can answer that, the statement of purpose to me is really just like fleshing out the bigger idea, whereas the mission and vision is consolidating those ideas.
Yeah, to me, the statement of purpose and the history are kind of linked. They're kind of the why more, it's more the rationalization. And then the mission statement is a bit drier. It's a bit more direct of like how. Yeah, it's the how. It's the goals that would be on a website, something like that.
Yeah, sure. Do you see a need for those to be distinct?
That's what I'm trying to decide, and part of it might be, because this is bulleted. But I feel like sometimes purpose and mission, vision statement can be construed as the same thing, but they're definitely, like, I see how they're different broken up.
Yeah,
because
there's a
this-
lot more passion in the statement of purpose, original.
Sure, yeah, well, that's because it says, specifically the first bit about, artists are under pressure. And I don't know how what I'm trying to say. Javier, you're good at interpreting these sometimes. But, sometimes the, like, that's the problem, not necessarily the purpose.
Okay, I see what you're saying. The statement of purpose for you right now is outlining more the issues that we want to address or the feedback that we've gotten or how the committee itself is feeling about the scene.
Like, the purpose feels like an action statement rather than.
Right, so perhaps more of an action statement of either feedback we've gotten from the community, feedback from the committee itself. And not necessarily like, because it is more a subjective feeling in a lot of this. It is worded in a way that is more emotional. So rather than being a statement of purpose, rather it being more these are what we believe to be true within our community, and these are the things that we find to be an issue. Is that more what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, what is that necessary? What is that necessary in the document? That, I don't wanna assume, but it's happening in every industry, in every community, in the city. Why do we have to bring up specific examples about instances that occurred and things like that, whereas we could just address it unemotionally and just rationally, that, you know, these things are occurring and we do not want to be a part of that. Why can't you say that?
So just to reiterate, your question is about why, the purpose of having examples of specific experiences, correct? Yes?
Talking about taking out the emotion more so, right? Is that what I'm understanding, that you think it should sound less emotionally impassioned and more logic, ration focused? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And I don't know if we need to bring up specific examples.
Yeah, I do agree with that. That is something we talked about.
Okay.
I think,
Microphone.
yeah, I think I think the most specific that we get in the document itself is actually in the history. When we mention the events of 2022. This section, I do see what you mean, that it's that first paragraph that has that, and when writing it, it was kind of a thesis statement, kind of an introductory sentence. And then later on, it does get into more, I think, what you want out of it, which is the things about the Midwest austerity and the ways that we're expected to behave towards people in authority and towards each other while working. So I think that's something we could take a look at.
Yeah, and that's because I don't think there's anything wrong with it per se, but as a reader, it was just confusing initially.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. I think it's part of it is it was to help us get into it as well.
Audrey, I was wondering too, just, and I know, I understand, the purpose is to support actors, but a lot of the actors in our town are also producers who are under those same pressures. You know, for instance, at the Fringe, most of the producers are actually creators and performers as well.
Yeah.
I just wondered, you know, because right now it says artists, so I wonder artists, producers. I don't know if artists includes that.
Yeah, thank you for that question. That definitely is the intention, is that artists include every person working, even leadership figures as
So,
well.
and that's, I wonder if there is another word to use, because as, someone who works on the administrative side, I
Right.
would consider myself an artist in that sense. So people who work in house management, box office, things like that, they need the same level of support as people in the rehearsal room.
Absolutely.
Would the word theater professionals, do you think that would potentially work as a more covered?
Yes, but because we are also addressing the theater community at large, that not necessarily practicing professionally.
Theater, I second theater.
And the theater community at large also includes audience members as well.
Theater community members.
Kind of encompasses everything by not just having general theater community, but by including members of it, something you can opt out as you as a person chooses. A lot of times in addition to that.
And what were you wanting that to replace?
Artists.
Artists, okay, yes,
Like,
yeah.
the general sense.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Then
Smart.
for Zoom, we're just going over a specific dialogue on the specificness of artist. So could you repeat that again for me?
Theater community members.
Theater community members is something that's been proposed.
Yeah.
You had a question?
I have a statement about the artist, as I read through the entire document. More and more and more, I resented that term, because it always came up when just referring to actors. And I was like, if we go on with this sort of thing, we're gonna cause a huge division, just with that one word. And what's going on between, well, and it separates, also saying the actors are the lowly people, while the non-artists are the ones from up above. And I think it's very forward writing on the artists, guys.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's probably a blind spot on our part, because I'm an actor almost exclusively, and several other of us are.
And the rough draft,
Yeah.
too. This is not the,
Rough draft is amazing, and that's why
It
we
is
have these.
very
forums.
impressive.
thank you.
I
And-
want it back all.
Well, and to be clear, yeah, that is kind of why we need to have these sort of forums, is because we need to hear what didn't read right with people, but understand that this is not the draft that we're submitting to companies to say, we would like your signature on this. We're not at that stage yet, right? So this is where we get to work all this stuff out. Yeah.
As a supporter of the community, theater, I've been a nurse for 30 years. We have something called, patient rights. And, speaking, piggybacking on what this young lady said, should there be something, called maybe, or put together for, called theater community member rights? And, under patient rights, you know, we say that the patient has a right to refuse. They have a right to voice their opinions, you know, about their health care. So maybe a similar document on theater community member rights, or could be, you know, added or put into your statement of purpose or your mission and vision statement, you know.
That's real good.
Yeah.
That's real good.
It's saying that you have a right to challenge rules and regulations or whatever you don't agree with.
Yeah.
You know, something along that.
Love that.
Great.
Thank you.
I think that offers a really helpful solution to what we've been talking about with the statement of purpose and the mission and vision statement needing a little bit more distinction. Member rights is really smart. I like that. Thank you for that.
I'm just gonna let you know, we have about 11 minutes left before our next break.
I just went back to what you're talking about the statement of purpose versus mission and values. I also thought of a similar thing to what I think you're saying, and I think, I would phrase it, my confusion was statement of purpose. This doesn't read like a purpose, like these are the problems that we're trying to address, but the purpose is to address these problems. Artists are under pressure is not a purpose, that's an issue, and our purpose is to.
There we go.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's really helpful.
take or leave this comment. I don't know if it would help with the theater community artists edit. I think that's amazing. I love that fully encompassing thing. I don't know if it would help at the beginning of the document to say, in reference to the jargon of theater community members, this includes, but it's not limited to actors.
I think that's
Really
Yeah.
defining it, just so it's all encompassing, or even to really make sure we don't miss anybody, like scenic designers and stuff.
Do we still have our
Everyone's
glossary
very
section?
important in that way. I just thought I'd throw that out there, maybe if you wanna say, cause typing out all those names, I'm sure would make this like 2 times as long, but
As much as we
throwing
can,
that out there.
yeah, as much as we can find that all-encompassing language, it's really great.
Did we keep our glossary section? Is that still in the back of the document?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that'd be a good place to put that, maybe.
Anything else that we want to address about the statement of purpose before we move on? No. And I want to remind everyone too that, or encourage everyone that anything that maybe comes out, like if you have something that comes up later or just something that really struck you about today, we encourage you to please go and fill out our online feedback form to really help us drill in these notes. Because you can see we're all taking our notes up here, but as much as you can put it on our spreadsheet to say, here's what I think, here's what I think about what we talked about today. We would really love to hear from you all in that regard too.
And I'd just like to remind for our form to form going on, please raise your hand before shouting out so that no one gets cut off or that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Hillary.
Even
Yeah.
adults need to be reminded to not act like children.
Yes.
See myself included.
And Hafia made the point too, that if folks want to come up and speak directly into the mic, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Absolutely. So if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. Hillary can let you know, and then Hillary can bring you the mic here so that everyone on Zoom can also hear it first.
All right, well, we're making great time. Do you want to go ahead and take a break now? Yeah. Folks, just, I know we haven't gotten into it too much yet, but we want to give lots of space for you to process this information as we go through, to use the restroom if you need to. So we're gonna take about 5 minutes right now. And yeah, stretch, do what you gotta do. By the way, we've noticed that these chairs allow you to stretch, so enjoy that. All right, 5 minutes. Thank you, 5. Yeah. We're gonna move on to our history section now. And Natalie is gonna go over our history section. Take it away, Natalie.
All right. Okay. History. In December of 2022, after public accusations of sexual abuse were made against a prominent and longstanding community leader, this leader first retired and then later died by suicide. This act sent a clear message across the community: the system is broken. This could only have happened thanks to years of suppression of a serious issue that was neither taken seriously nor held accountable on any level by the people with power to do so. Many different factors are tied up in this event, including victim blaming, sexual power dynamics, and entrenched homophobia. Some of these factors are beyond the scope of this document. In 2018, The Pitch published an article that detailed the well-known but still secret abuse towards actors, stage managers, technicians, and box office employees inside another local theater company. Cycles of abuse continue to silence and influence artists who have been taught that this is just part of the system, a system that is created and upheld by people who can assume absolute power over their company's morals. Talented artists have quit aspects of the business or quit theater completely because of their traumatic experiences. It is an immense power to hold control over a space that artists want to work in. And it is the duty of all leadership figures to assume that responsibility with integrity and respect for artist wellness is of the highest priority. While many companies in our community have acknowledged their role in our communal growth and taken steps to heighten safety measures for their artists, further transparency, expansion, and unity is necessary on a larger level.
On all levels. on all levels, not on a larger level, on all levels.
Again, a reminder, please raise your hand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Just a wording thing that I saw, I wondered if, the second bullet point, this could only have happened due to years of suppression or serious issue. I feel like, saying thanks to years feels very, a little catty, or can be construed that way. That's why.
Is that in the original?
Yeah, the abridged is just all taken from the draft, yeah. Can I ask for, oh, sorry, go ahead, Skippy.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you want to say any more, I want to be respectful, you had to.
No, I didn't have that.
I want to be respectful of the parameters, given that names of companies and individuals will not be named in this meeting. There is a long-standing arts community member that opened up that the years of abuse have been experienced since the 90s at this company and some other places in town. I am not subtracting the history that's been covered. It's very difficult to trace just how long this has been going on in all the individual companies. But I just want to make an acknowledgement that at least it's almost impossible for me to say this, especially because I'm only 29. I haven't really been here since the other guards of the theater scene have been laid in this city. But I really do want to make acknowledgement that on the record, I have had a conversation and an openly published article with a community member about how they experienced abuse since the 90s from not just that company that that individual worked at, but one surrounding. I just want to make that acknowledgement, and if that's can be part of the historical narrative, I think that would just really respect that community member's experience.
Just
Thank
give
you.
it a timeline. More
Yeah.
to say like it's a decades long.
Yes, and I also know that is so difficult though, because the history has been so unnamed and unclear, but yeah.
I will also say that obviously, finding ways to talk about the context of our city and its own experiences is important, but we have to remember that so many of the things that we are experiencing have been entrenched in American theater for hundreds of years.
Yes.
And so there are ways I think that we need to figure out how to show the inciting factors for why we felt that this document was needed. While I don't know necessarily how to acknowledge specifically our generations, the generations that are still alive and their experiences, while it is still something that we know has been going on for longer than people like have literally been alive and working in this city, people who have died since, and we can no
Yeah.
longer speak for them.
And not even our country. I mean, it's famously
Yeah.
corrupted history at all times, all time periods. Yeah. We got that question.
You're doing great.
So our last person on board who just spoke, your name is
Ahafia.
Ahafia, and you said that, that this is, the history, but people do not know what we have experienced.
Sure.
And I ask you this, why aren't those experiences written into the history? Do all of you have experiences? They should be written into the history. You guys are picking on two industries, one of which is remarkably bounced back very, very well, and is acknowledging all of its, vast kind of stuff. But then we pick up your document and read that, we're still judge and jury on all of it.
Yeah, I think, I'm sorry. I think just what he's asking. I think specifically, we are addressing two incidences in particular because they made news. They were published in local articles and very well publicized, and they affected a lot of people in the community.
Yeah, Casey and I were actually in that show.
We were in one of the
We were
shows.
in the show that got reported to the pitch.
Yeah, so I think there is value definitely in expanding on specifics. If there are other specifics that we might be missing, I think we're obviously very open to hearing what we might be missing here. And At the same time, we don't want to get too, like, I'm not gonna come up here and say, my name is Casey, I'm gonna write in this document, here's all the experiences I've had poorly in this community,
Yeah.
you know, like that's not what we're doing here. So I think we have to kind of find that line to
Yeah.
dance.
We got a little skittish as it went, because we didn't want to turn it into just a grievance document. Like,
Yes.
we didn't just want to make it yelling, but this is the section we did want to be specific about. And I think you agree. I think that's kind of what you were saying about this one. You want more specificity on this one? Okay.
Sorry, I'm gonna jump in here real
Go
quick.
ahead, go
So I mean, I think that there are two ways to look at it. Either you tell every story or you be more general.
Yeah. I agree.
And we're hearing that feedback, and that is something we're definitely gonna discuss and talk about and try to figure out the optimal way to do that, because personally, and the interesting thing about this committee is we do a lot of talking. We're a committee. We talk over a lot of these ideas. We discuss them a lot, and we do try to come up with the best possible option in the end. And then we come and read it to you and hear what you have to say and take that feedback as well. I personally don't know that we can tell all the stories, and I think that might be a disservice to the document. But other people on this committee will disagree, and other people in the community will disagree. And that's the whole point of what we're doing here, is we're gonna hear all of those voices, and we're gonna try to come up with something that honors as much as we can of your ideas and our ideas. I know there are a couple other hands here, so I'll stop talking and let that happen.
Before I just saw your question, I just wanted to add in just a thought, of having those examples is necessary. So that individuals who might not know what that looks like or what that means, because they might have experienced it, had no idea that that was a form of abuse. So having that in there is just an example to give someone that encouragement to either speak up or just to validate their own lived experience.
It felt impossible at the time of writing to not bring up at least Jeff Church, because that was specifically what catalyzed this. We came together a few months later and we're like, it's BS, we don't want to do this anymore. And started the whole thing. So it's something we can definitely take a look at. That one in particular felt it felt crazy to not say anything about it at all. And then the pitch one was thrown in there, like Casey said, because it made the news. It made national news. But that is something we can take a look at it.
Yeah.
These sections are very living, I would say.
Very, very alive, yeah. And I will say, just while we're I think Hafia, you said that showing the inciting factors is important in this, like literally what were the things that made it so that we felt the need to even do this work.
Sorry, I had a quick technical questions for Hillary's sake. Can people on Zoom hear from this mic at all?
Yes, I'm listening to make sure we all are heard.
Okay, so if I speak this loud,
You're fine.
okay, I just don't want to have to like run between every single
Yeah.
room.
I couldn't went into a more radial. It's
fine.
probably front only.
We're doing great.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
I was just gonna say, I was kind of agreeing with what Coleman said, but as someone who moved here in March of 22. So after all of these events happened, I don't feel like there's any need to have a justification as to why you are doing this document.
That's true.
Because it does feel like we're only, right now, on the outside, kind of being an outsider, it feels like we're only saying these are the things that happened. But there's a lot of, I'm sure, from being in other cities and working in theater, there's a lot of little things that have happened along the way. So I feel like there doesn't need to be a justification on why this doing it, except for what the purpose is to make a safer community in those races personally.
Thank you very much. It is definitely a great point that making a document to make theater a safer place to work does not need a justification.
Yeah.
I do have something coming in from online from Katie. A specific that isn't named in the history of our community is the occupation of positions of power by a certain demographic, white cis men over the age of 50. I think it is an issue in our community as well, historically speaking.
That's a really good point. Thank you for that, Katie.
This is a specific comment related to the history and like the living, breathing document in full. The final bullet point and the final clause says, further transparency, expansion, and unity is necessary on a larger level. I thought you all did a beautiful job, and we've done a really nice job refining to be specific about saying theater community members.
Yeah.
If there's a way at the clause near the end to say something like further transparency, expansion, and unity is necessary by blank on a larger level. Because I think, Phil, you did bring up a good point earlier about, I don't want this to be like dividing leadership next to community. I mean, there's always going to be some vision there, but to work through that divisiveness, I just don't want to make sure it's like, it's always these people who are in the positions of power. I won't name my experience at a cast member who was considered an equal where I felt unsafe. So I was like, is that a position of power, or is that unfortunately, a fellow theater community member? I just wanted to throw that out there and think about the logistics of who are we looking at and why through the document. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, that the whole purpose of this document is not to divide, it is to invite everyone in. So thank you for making that point.
In fact, and you guys are wondering, as you're writing this, is there anybody of legal advice on the committee with you?
We have one now.
We do, yeah, our new committee member, Ashton Box, is our resident legal advisor.
No. But one thing that I worry the most about publicizing the church case is that we are saying things about him, about the situation, as if it were a truth. We need to say alleged, because he never had his day in court. Court did not ever come about to decide what this was going to be, and it's been left in limbo. And if you guys were radio reporters talking about this on talk radio, you would not be using the vernacular, the tenses and everything like that. You would be very careful to point out that, we're not taking any sides or anything like that here. But those 3 days of being judged on Facebook, and not by your peers, but through a courtly system, that makes me skittish too.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
you
you
guys.
don't want a lynch mob, I agree. Absolutely not. Did you have another question?
I'll make a very brief comment. I'm gonna be mindful, I promise.
So I have a journalism degree, and something that was very heavy in our education was suing for libel when we did journalism law. A lot of people have gone on the record about what had happened to them. Alleged is not necessarily in my wheelhouse. I want to be respectful to someone like Ashton, who had a lot of education and went to school for a while to understand what that means. But not acknowledging it is a disservice and raises a history of what caused a movement. And I think by acknowledging it, working through it, and finding a balance of who's gone on the record and why, and has proof as a collective, at least as a journalism major, you kind of get the truth of history if a pattern is spoken by people who've gone through a situation. I'm sorry that I can't look at you. I just had open heart surgery, so my sternum hurts. Thanks. When I turn, I swear to God, I'd love to be looking at you right now. I just want to make sure I made that comment. I respect you, and especially you, Ashton, when it comes to the legal side of things. But as a journalism major, I wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, we really want those kinds of comments in general also, because this original draft was written without real legal input, which we have now. But if you have those ideas, bring them up. And also, I would say, send that to us over either the Zoom, or we still have that link up, right? For just general online feedback.
Yes.
There's a Google form that you can fill out, and you can put down all that like really nitty-gritty specific stuff. There's a section to say, to specify what section you're talking about, and you can say like what paragraph, and really get in there.
And to be clear, Connor is referring to the form that we originally put out with the January launch.
Yes. the
Where you
full-
can, you can provide very specific detailed feedback as opposed to the form we're linking with the QR code more obviously today, which is just more about what we're covering today. If that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else as it pertains to the history? Anything on Zoom, Coleman? No? All right, and as always, if anything comes up later, we just discussed the forms, please reach out to us with any thoughts that you have. We are not up here to say, this is how it should be done. We are up here to say, we're gonna start this, and help us. Yeah, go ahead, Coleman.
I'm probably loud enough, but we'll use the mic anyway. Yeah, in regards to that, occasionally you may think of something when we move on to the next section that may be about the section we were just in. Send that into the Zoom, send that into the Google form, or text it to us. We will either answer it later, or if we have time at the end of the forum, we'll circle back to it.
Guys, I have just a general question, you may have addressed this before I got here, but, behind the scenes, how did you guys work? How did you decide, okay, these are the 4 sections? And in these sections, these are going to be this and this and this. Who's going to write it? And did one of you write one section, or did 2 or 3 of you go over coffee and write one of the sections?
A little bit of all that.
Yeah, what happens then is that no matter who wrote what down in that document, right now it's all of you.
Mhm.
You have to stand up and defend everything that's in that.
Yeah, that was our process. Pretty much, there was at least one example of pretty much everything you said. We had a group meeting about it where we divided out the main chapters that we wanted, which a couple got added a little later even, and we assigned people to write it. People would write down their little bullet points or sketch out their ideas, and then I was the person who went in and compiled what they had written. So people would just kind of write what they thought, what they felt in section 2, which we aren't talking about today, but that gets into the more nitty-gritty of details and different tactics to try. People would just kind of brainstorm and write them down. I kind of put them together, gave a little intro, and then Casey went back in and revised those intros. Oh, yeah, and we also took a lot of inspiration from other community documents that were made. We specifically looked at Not in Our House, Chicago, and we also looked at MinTech, which I can't remember exactly what it stands for, Minnesota.
Minneapolis.
Oh, Minneapolis
Minneapolis
Theater
is
Alliance
something like that.
Coalition, something like that.
Yeah,
This is not a new thing, this has been done before.
yeah,
Yeah,
I would put that stuff in there.
it is.
yeah,
It is.
there's a reference page
Sorry.
at the back
No,
that has everything.
there are, while we're talking about this, there are in the glossary or the references section of the full document, which you can access on the website or on the Facebook group as well. We do link the 3 major institution or organizations that have already done something to this effect and that we were referring to a lot. Mostly Chicago's Not in Our House. They're pretty well known and pretty well established. But yeah, Minneapolis and also New York has a league of
Yeah,
theater something. Yeah,
LDNY or something.
Yeah.
It had a cute little name.
yeah.
So it sounds like as you guys were growing and moving along, at one point somebody said, hey, you probably should have some kind of legal counsel with us, right?
Yeah, I definitely said it.
There any discussion of, now, don't get me wrong here, but was there any discussion of having some kind of English professor? Some kind of person of writing knows how through writing they communicate very, very clearly what the intention is? Because that's the other criticism I have of the document, is it is so muddled.
Sure.
And the word choices are awful lot better stop. But sure.
That's fair. The word choice thing, I mean, I'll say I have a bachelor's in creative writing, so a bit more stories based and not as based in technical writing, which to me personally is very different. So I think I have a parallel skill set, but terminology was something that I was always thinking about, and I knew it was a little muddy, but at the same time, it was like, that's the point of the first draft, is to have other people come in and say it's muddy here, here, and here specifically, and then we'll go in and change that.
Yeah, and I will say, as the person who was basically recruiting all the people you see up here, the intention really was to get anyone to join who wanted to. The first thing was, I'm not reaching out to people so much, I'm saying, who wants to help? Who wants to help with this? We put out a form about a year ago where we asked for specific interest and what specific skills people might have that could lend to this. We had a lot of people reach out with stuff like, I might not have time to join the committee, but I do have a lot of experience in technical writing, so I would like to help edit more so, and things like that. And we've reached out to those people individually. But this is continuing. We're continuing to seek anyone who has the passion and the skill set to put those technical eyes on this. That's absolutely part of what we're developing here.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Anything else in relation to the history? As always, come and send us some feedback if you think of something later, or if there are specifics, like we've talked a lot about the individual bits of terminology today. If you are looking at the document, you are not going to flood us or bother us if you send us the tiniest little note on that form. Send us those notes. They're all being collected in a spreadsheet. They're not going to get lost. We need stuff like that. If you're seeing a typo that we missed, even like you're not bothering us. We've had someone already just reach out and say, hey, there's a typo. That's what we're doing here. That's what we need. So yeah, please, if there's anything else that comes up, do reach out to us. Yeah, you want to go ahead and take our next break then?
Yeah.
All right, let's take a 5-minute break. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the mission and vision statement, which is Caitlin. Take it away, Caitlin.
All right, so I'm gonna read a little bit from the adapted document, just so instead of more of the bullet points, kind of get more of the actual sound of it. So the mission of Kansas City Theater Safety Initiative is to provide public standards in the community agreement uniting theater artists, theater community members, and companies in an effort to build a safer and more transparent future. We believe in the power of positive community action and commitment to universal safety standards. Our hope is that this document will provide a clear roadmap of these theater community members on every, I'm not translating, and on every level, and allowing them to produce and perform to the best of their capability. So the vision for that is that we will hopefully overall create a safer community for future and current generations of the theater industry in Kansas City. Sorry, not using the mic, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
So to create a safer community, to establish greater transparency between companies and the artists, workers, employees, independent contractors, etc., that they employ, to provide support and resources to theater community members, including avenues to voice their concerns and a shared language of support and guarantee of rights around their work, to provide a universal understanding of basic theater standards within the community. So I know for one of the things that we don't have on the notes here, but a lot of theaters in town do have their own harassment policies that are shared and signed. And this is kind of just an example of hey, these are in general the standards that should be met, that should be included in these to make them kind of more overall.
Under mission, the third bullet point, I love the language of a clear roadmap for theater artists on every level. For people who maybe are just getting into I know what that means because I've gotten to perform from the community theater through national level. I don't know if you feel like that might be a way to spell out on every level, which includes community theater to, I don't know, actors, accredited actors equity,
Okay.
Theaters. It's just a thought. And what else was I gonna say? I really love this. Oh, just, I would actually love for you all to help me better understand the vision, the third bullet point, provide support and resources to artists. I'd just like to know for all of you what that means when you say it.
Yeah, and so just to expand on what we have in the abridged version, which again, the mission and vision in this abridged version is also the full version. This is the only one we didn't abridge for this version. So we have to provide support and resources to artists, including avenues to voice their concerns, which we kind of talked about, you know, the sort of balance that we could do to establish a reporting pathway, which we're not there yet, but that's of course always a topic of conversation, and a shared language of support and guarantee of rights around their work. So that's the expanded
That is
idea. Okay, great. Yeah, great.
To me, the shared language of support also applies not just directly locally to what we're doing in Kansas City. To me, that also refers to the language and some terminology that we lifted from the other documents, like Not in Our House, Chicago, the PTR tax resolution, that's directly from them, I'm pretty sure. And the purpose of that is to create a shared language regionally as well as locally.
In my head.
No, please.
I'm so sorry.
No, not at all.
As someone who now has witnessed a production with intimacy coordination, it was very powerful to read and hear about how that really served the actors. That was both on stage, and I was very curious to see if what they said on stage matched behind the scenes, and it did, which was really cool and interesting. From your conversations, things like intimacy coordination, do you feel like there's a way to reference perhaps within the mission or the vision that it's an example of how to create a safety net? So I'm gonna throw it out there. Under like the provide support and resources to artists, this also includes like intimacy coordination contacts, or I'm just throwing it out there too.
We can have one of those like indented bullet lists.
Yeah.
I do like that.
I definitely like that idea, and that also gives us a chance to point out what other sorts of safety nets are there for artists. I think something that I've been thinking about as a huge challenge in our city, and honestly in our 5-state region, is that we only have one nationally certified intimacy coordinator. Yes, it is Katie Gilchrist. She is the only one who is nationally certified. She's been in multiple trainings that she has paid thousands of dollars for at a national level.
Right, I know that's a huge thing, is the barriers to being certified in the first
That
place.
she has had to apply for grants and to get that certification. And so obviously it has been very difficult for us as a community to know that we have access to that type of coordination. And it means, I think, that a lot of people have stepped up within their individual theaters and said, I'm going to try to learn the basics of this so that I can provide this to the best of my abilities. But I think that I don't know if that's something that we can really like address, other than trying to help people know that the resources currently are limited. And I think that it's okay to be upfront with our community about that there is simply not enough resources for something like that.
Yeah. And I will say too, just while we're on that point before we move on, that we do have an intimacy section specifically later in the document. And we have had discussions about how we probably will get someone like Katie to advise us on that we need someone to come in who has expertise on being an intimacy coordinator. And yeah, seeing how we can expand. But I agree, I'm not sure how much we can dictate, you know, in this other than being completely
using it as an
transparent.
example, and then being transparent about what our current resources are in this area.
I blow them out.
Respect.
Phrasing thing that I would like to suggest to the committee is a universal understanding of basic human safety standards within the community. And if we're talking theater specifically, that then goes into a little bit too much of a specific of surrounding theater, whereas with this, as people work in multiple industries and have secondary, third jobs outside of the theater community. It kind of sets up a basis of, these are maybe things to take into who you are as a human being.
Yeah.
And not necessarily just our based community, but the Kansas City general region as well.
Yeah, we have a section. We have a chapter in section 2 that is titled workplace safety. And for me personally, that is part of it for me. So when we get to that forum, or if you have any brainstorms at any point, feel free to give us some of those.
Absolutely. It just kind of hit as a weird thing, but I know we're trying to stay specifically as much as we can. But just that feels like it could be a broader moment.
And can I clarify, are you referring specifically to the last bullet point?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great,
And
thank you.
just that one use of theater is the only one that stood out to me of becoming more generalized.
Yeah.
Would it make sense to be human safety standards and theater safety standards? Because I think that there, obviously there's overlap between the two, but there are some things that like theater's safety standards could often get more specific.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I think we just need to add that little bit of a human element back in, besides just the structure of a building and a stage.
Absolutely.
Art standards, artists only.
More of what artists only, just for actors. Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Just kidding. We're not doing that, we're not doing that.
I'm fine with that, it's just trying to think was, I might be a little bit behind the times, but I didn't realize that you could get certification now as an intimacy coordinator. But I've taken 4 of the courses, and, you know, they said, well, we can't certify you, yeah, I understand.
That's more reason.
Why am I taking this course? Anyway, so I'm kind of glad that we are on that path.
I love intimacy coordination. I love it morally.
Yeah.
I love it when I watch something, a movie or a TV show or whatever, and I can see it. I can see the fact that it was coordinated. I've always been against this idea that we've always had of when it's time for a romantic scene, you just smash 2 people together and just see what chemistry occurs. But in performance, intimacy is just as much part as anything else. You choreograph dance numbers, why wouldn't you choreograph a love scene?
Great.
So I'm glad that that's happening.
Sounds like you should get certified.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to say, as far as intimacy choreography as well, there are 2 different schools of thoughts as far as, it depends on where you go and to get your training. Some do certify, others don't. I've been doing intimacy choreography since 2019 for WIM, and the courses that I have taken came from Theatrical Intimacy Education TIE, and they deliberately do not certify. They have said it's part of their whole mission to saying we do not certify. Now, recently, probably 6 months to a year ago, there was a split of Chelsea Pace and I forget the other one, but there were 2 people that started it. One of them has left the company and started her own. The Thai people, they're now doing a diploma. And I think the other group that started as well, I think they are not doing a certification, so I think that there's kind of a rift in there. But yeah, there are definitely people who have taken hundreds of hours of courses, or I guess I haven't taken hundreds, but I've definitely taken a lot of courses since then. So yeah, this is sort of to Phil's point. There is a lot of experience out there without having a quote unquote certification.
Yeah.
So,
I wonder with that too, then, is there a way for us to, would it be helpful for something like KCTSI to start compiling a list of people who have done trainings, people who have certifications, kind of that stuff, so that theaters know who they can reach out to if they don't have somebody to work with, or like just saying like, hey, this is the certifications or the experience that we have already, so that people, is that kind of what you guys are feeling?
I love
Okay. That too. You don't have to, yeah. Scream, Taylor.
Yes, please. I think in addition to that, any sort of specifically like technical people as well, that could be on production teams, keeping a list of people.
Yeah.
Potentially producers or stage managers could come to and be like, hey, we're in need of someone who can do this specific job.
Sure.
Because sometimes it is hard to find people
Mm-hmm.
to help facilitate that, or we have one person that it's overbooked and we can't necessarily go in and would love to add more people to working with and everything, and keeping a list of people who are interested in working within these confines, I think would be a wonderful thing and a wonderful resource for the community at large at all levels.
That sounds like a lot of people will make Facebook posts and ask just like, hey, who do I know who's a lighting designer or whatever, right? Yeah, so you're talking about sort of filling that gap.
Mm-hmm.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
Right.
Sorry to jump in.
That's true. And also what was said earlier about gaps in skills that people have. Some of that, you know, you might just find some people who have the training, at least have something, and just kind of make a good faith effort to add them on. And then, you know, not that we're watching you, but you know, if it's a bad time, then people will talk about it. And not to advertise myself right now, but I have articulation and diction training, not fully certified, but if someone was in need of that, I would gladly offer my services.
Yeah, and how else would they know that?
And,
unless-
yeah, and like without certification, the only other way you're gonna get better at it is through experience.
Right, exactly. Thank you, Hillary. And I wonder too, if something like that would allow our city to become less word of mouth, because that is definitely the hardest thing that I have come across, like as I have gotten more and more comfortable being a music director in this city. I mean, getting a band together for a musical theater production is literally only who the fuck do I know? And who do I know, who I trust, who I can ask to find somebody to fill the specific thing. And that means that there are a lot of people who never get a chance to do it because I just haven't heard their name. And if we have a way to actually look at a list and say, okay, there are people here that I've never heard of, and like, I want to be able to take it. Like, I literally, there was a time where I had to put a post on like a Facebook group that was like, hey, anybody who can play violin and learn a Jason Robert Brown musical in a week? Oh, and thank God it worked out, but there's no guarantees.
Yeah.
Yeah, props rival.
Quick note, I know, Arts KC has a directory as well, but they don't know that that thing exists.
Right.
Not everyone's signed up on it.
Kevin had a question first, I think.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think the idea of having a list is fantastic of all the different theater skill professionals. I would probably nudge that I don't think this body is part of that.
Yes.
Because if it gets focused on all of that, then it really dilutes
Yes.
what the focus is. I would say though, like, it does kind of make sense that intimacy choreographers would be,
Yeah.
because that is a very specialized thing that is really part of those of us that. Yeah, those of us that do intimacy choreography, like, absolutely feel like it is a huge part of making theater safe, making theater less weird,
Yeah.
and all of that. So I think that makes sense for this group to have a list of those folks.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I think that's probably
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Outside
Yeah.
the scope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see.
I agree.
I really was just gonna say the same thing. I think that's a resource we need in Kansas City, but. This
Not
is a state
necessarily.
initiative.
Yeah.
So someone else start that committee.
I have a question kind of to everyone about that. Do you think that that would be something that would also include like fight choreographers?
Yes.
That is also something like a physical safety.
Yeah, safety oriented, right? Intimacy, fight.
I think that could also include,
Technical directors,
Uh,
maybe?
potentially technical directors, and health and safety officers.
Ooh, yeah.
And then even not to like work with the people who can help give references or information.
Yeah, exactly. Health and safety.
Health and safety officers.
You help me understand what that means to you, say, just.
Yeah, so health and safety officers, as I know them, are people who help ensure that everyone coming into rehearsals is physically well and not passing on infection. It was something that really started with COVID. So making sure everyone is keeping themselves safe and healthy, so that other people can stay safe and healthy.
Great.
It evolved from the COVID safety officers that were required by equity. They, in 2023, removed that from their rule book of having a COVID safety officer and shifted it to a health and safety officer to talk through both all physical ailments as well as also the person that would go through and do a walkthrough of the space to make sure that the space itself is also safe for people to physically be on. So it includes all of your COVID, your flu, but then it also goes into things like chicken pox or having poison oak or poison ivy, and what are the processes that leaders take to mitigate any spread of any sort of ailment that could go through with a group of.
Okay, very good, thank you.
No real certification there, just the position.
Yes.
Someone who's read a lot of documents.
Yeah.
Highly recommended that you are first aid and CPR certified though.
Yeah.
CPR and first aid certified. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
And having at least some sort of background of that is.
Although,
extremely
in my experience, they aren't there every day. So there is that, but that could be something that would be nice to have.
Yeah.
Someone
Yeah.
that is certified on set every day.
Throw down the ether, Fred, or just do it.
Well, and I always like the idea too of just having the network of resources so that even if you weren't able to bring someone on for a full position, if someone said, hey, I know I have this knowledge and I am willing to put my name out in the community to say, you can ask me questions if you have them, right? That gets into a whole other conversation about like unpaid labor, which is not exactly what I mean by that, you know, but yeah, like for example, if I have a specific skill, people have asked me sometimes about producing basics, right? Like the minimum stuff to know about producing. And I'm like, yeah, I'll give you advice, right? But that's my choice.
Yeah.
So if people are choosing to say, yes, put me on the KCTSI website as a health and safety officer that people could reach out to, then that's their consent, right? Yeah, for whatever that would be, however we phrase that.
We're coming on 10 minutes left of this section 4.
We're making great time. Anything else that strikes anyone about the mission and vision statement today? You have a zoomie? Little zoomer?
Go,
Little zoomer? Little zoomer in the chat? Yeah. Humans with zoomies? Oh, we don't. No zoomers, no zoomers.
Hi, journalism major again. If this, take or leave this, truly. I've just noticed with mission and vision statements, if there's a way to summarize some of this language so that you've got 3 sentences or less, I just know that really helps people of all experience levels fully grapple what a collective or an initiative can stand for. Please take or leave that. That is such a grammar nerd thing. I'm just throwing your way.
You mean that the mission bit specifically?
Well, just the mission and vision, how it's,
is 3 sentences.
It's technically 2 paragraphs, but it is very short.
Background, but
And it is different from this. This is not.
One at a time.
I read the actual mission statement, not the. But it's.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, this is just for the slideshow with the bullets, but the mission itself is written in paragraph form.
Okay.
Yeah. But in general, Skibby brings up a good point that that's a lot of what we want to do here too. We've definitely gotten the feedback already that this is a lot to take in. It can just, it's muddled, it's a lot, right? It's a lot to digest. So if there's anything that makes sense to you as condensing it, as synthesizing information, that's always really helpful for us to hear.
There is a certain line though, you might see when we get to the section 2 forum later, you might see the same tip or a very similar tip show up in multiple sections. Depending on the context, that could be a good thing. It might be something that you do want to repeat several times because it does come up in so many different instances.
Yeah.
But that's just something to keep in mind.
Anything else about the mission and vision statement before we move on? No? All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll go ahead and take another 5-minute break now and be back in 5. All right. I believe we are all met. Thank you, everyone. Okay. We're going to move on. I am unmuted. However, this one, okay, there we go. We're going to move on to the next section. You may have already noticed that we're still kind of figuring out what that language is even. We have the sections 1, 2, and 3, but then we have these, like Connor referred to them as chapters. If you have any suggestions for just that kind of stuff too, you know, we're open to that. So this subsection is called How to Use This Document, which is kind of just a brief overview. So let's get into it. Some of this you've heard already. Again, as was mentioned, a lot of stuff you might hear repeated. So if there's a place where that doesn't make sense, let us know. How to use this document. The Theater Safety Initiative document is a resource and a living document. It is not a legal document and should not be treated as such. The document provides a set of standards and best practices for the production of safe, effective, and well-considered theater. Signing this document signals a commitment to keep the well-being of workers first and foremost in mind of a production. Document implementation and the NED. Throughout this document, TSI, a common theme is transparency and accountability. By signing the TSI, you are signaling your commitment to these ideals. In action, this will look like sharing the TSI with all members of cast and crew, identify and assign a non-equity deputy or NED, refresh cast and crew on the TSI as necessary, and remember that production does not start on the first day of rehearsal. Production starts when a show is selected. Document breakdown. The bulk of TSI covers the main aspects of the production process, from audition to showtime. Each aspect has its own heading and is broken into 3 distinct categories. Goals, what we expect to achieve. Tactics, how we might achieve our goals. Actions. This section is the most living part of the document and the most subject to change. Actions refer either to actions for safety that have been taken in the past and proved to work, or ways that productions with unusual circumstances or limited budget/manpower might adapt. We can go ahead and open it up for questions, comments.
With the most recent section, the TSI covers the main aspects in the production process from audition to showtime. Can we switch audition to show selection?
Smart.
That again goes into specifying more of the actor perspective versus a designer perspective.
Totally, good note.
In general production.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Is that an actual document that you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Page 6, the first sentence under document breakdown.
Yeah.
And it also contradicts what you just said.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's why you all are here.
We added that sentence a little late, I think, and we were all so happy.
Yes.
to have it, and then we did not check.
Yeah.
Those specific.
I don't, something that I just kind of have in my head from someone who's been on like grant panels and stuff, and safety initiatives have been part of funding, and like ADA has been part of funding. Usually, this is just speaking from funding experience, so sorry, it sounds a little dry right now, but like places with assigned people tend to get more funding and support for their projects. So I don't know if within this, how to use this document, there's some way, shape, or form that a official person is the point of contact to ensure these things happen. Maybe I missed that when you were saying it, but
I think that might be in the next section.
okay,
We'll come
Sounds
back
good.
to it.
sounds great.
The total net thing.
Melanie on Zoom says, please clarify what an ed is and their responsibility.
That will be covered
Oh,
shortly.
go ahead, go ahead.
NED will be covered shortly in section 5.
And a brief understanding of it is what an equity deputy would do.
Which hopefully will cover your question.
Sounds good. Agreed. Thank you very much.
And in general, you bring up a good point, Skippy, that again, this is the stuff that we want to flesh out. So an NED is a specific person who is involved in the production already, who gets assigned, like on the first day of rehearsal. We've talked about how much this committee would be involved. Like, you know, originally we tossed out an idea of like, okay, well, what if someone was involved in every production? That seems a little too cumbersome, but if that's possible, then maybe that would be beneficial. So that's sort of something that we're figuring out still, is what exactly are those duties? Who is the person? The NED is really the person that we've assigned, but how much of that does get passed off to other people, either in the production or people on this committee, how we could be useful.
One of the issues here is the framing that we've used building this based around first day of rehearsal. Because generally that's when these things are elected from a cast perspective. The NED or the equity deputy are elected on the first rehearsal. Moving this to earlier in the process necessitates, I think, a different structure for this role or a different role.
I wonder, just from a reader's perspective, because the goal of this first few sections is like, this is what we are doing before you read the rest of this, which has all the details, right? So I think because the identify and assign a non-equity deputy does raise so many questions, I wonder if there's a way to state that in a way that doesn't name what the title is, and then that is brought up later as the, like, as more information.
Sure. And if we kept it in, would putting a little parentheses and just being like, see section 5.
Yeah.
Just referencing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well,
Yeah, because I know when I read it the first time, I read that and I was like, not equity, deputy, and it like flipped through everything, and then I didn't read the rest of that.
Is there also-
Referencing is great.
Is there maybe also a world where how to use this document comes after the pass the resolution?
That could be.
Now, and I'm not sure exactly, I think there'd have to be a little bit more retooling for that to happen, but it might help with definitions. Doing that first.
Yeah, and retooling is all about what we're doing here. So yes, we will retool.
Yeah, and we do have a glossary section as well. That's like towards the back. And that can be changed twice though.
I think this is.
We have talked extensively about where
Oh,
it should go.
hang on, guys. Yeah.
In the non-abridged version, there is more information on the non-equity deputy in this section.
Yeah.
That may be probably here, there is more information about that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I didn't give us copies of the full version today. I apologize for that, guys.
Nice.
Yes, the full version has more information. It's available on the website. Just again, if you don't know or didn't hear at the beginning. I think that it sounds like we need to rethink the language of non-equity deputy anyway, because that person may not exist at start of production. So I think this section is gonna change significantly, and it may be that instead of saying naming a non-equity deputy, it may be assigning someone in the production who's going to, and you know, we don't necessarily have a name for it. It could just say, where's identifying and assign a member of the production. Something, you know what I mean, instead of a name. But yeah, we hear what you're saying. If it's gonna become earlier, the deputy.
The term NED is also something taken from the Not in Our House Chicago standards. And they have it set up similarly to how we ended up doing it here. I don't have a follow up on that though. We're gonna look at it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I have a follow-up, I have a question. Well, I guess I do have a comment. So we talked about the timeline, right? And originally it says from audition to showtime, and we've gone back and looked at changing audition to show selection. I think it may also make sense to change showtime to through strike or through end of production, because there's a lot that happens really in relation to strike, that's also safety. So maybe that's something we can consider. And then Stephanie, I want to go back to your comment about the glossary and where that should live. As someone who works in contracts all day, I do like to have my definitions at the beginning of a contract rather than at the end, because it becomes quite cumbersome. It's not super user-friendly either way. I do prefer to have the definitions in one location, so I know where to look, but I am curious from a user perspective, and I would have this question for anyone. Does it make sense to have the glossary or the definition of terms at the very beginning versus the end? We can talk about pros and cons of both, but in your experience.
You could, okay, this is where we're gonna get really nerdy. I
Yeah.
love that. You could almost do both, where if you have like the most basic words that are gonna be used the most often, like TSI, MED, and what those would be things at the beginning. So that like, as you're reading, this is what these things mean, and then the glossary could be afterwards, and it is a more detailed. These are the definitions and why these are the words that we are using.
You think both?
Yeah,
That's good.
just go full on like second grade teacher chapter book.
Sure.
Yeah.
My thought is, I like the beginning mainly because I'm gonna either forget about it or not notice it's there at the end. If I see it at the beginning, then I know to look there.
Yeah. I do agree as a committee member also. We've moved it about 3 or 4 times. But I can see the pros and cons of either side. I do think at the beginning, for like unspooling of information to you as a reader, I like that. Because of kind of what we were talking about with the NED also, like when to reveal information at the right moment so that you're prepared for later when it just gets more and more dense.
The other thing that I was gonna bring up in regards to the title of non-equity deputy is whether or not there is a place for that to still be a role, but for someone on production level to also have a similar role, so that there is someone in place at the start of the production process, because equity deputy isn't chosen until first day of rehearsals also. So if there is a second person within that so that the equity deputy and the non-equity deputy can work together, and then someone also at a production level who can help facilitate that process as well.
Yeah.
One day we'll have more than 2 mics.
My personal thoughts on the NED person is that they are the main, and we're gonna go into this again, pretty shortly on section 5. But to me, they're the main point of contact between cast and crew and leadership, cast and crew together. Going back and forth between them and the director or the stage manager, because the NED would be separate role from the stage manager as well. It would be someone involved in the production, but isn't necessarily filling a full role already.
And I will say too, that I encourage all of you to join us again when we discuss the later parts of this document, because at the very end of the full version that you can find online, we have an example form which lays a lot of this out more specifically. That's like, here are the 2 team members that you would go to at this first tier. If things escalate, here's the 4 people. So there's a template at the very end of the document. I think it's under references or something like that. That maybe not references. There's templates at the end of the document where you can see a little bit more of this fleshed out too, which we'll talk about at a later.
There's a whole page with names of different people in different spots in the hierarchy.
Yeah, just a general thing as far as acronyms and all of that, try and use, I would suggest trying to use, to introduce the phrase before you reference it as an acronym. So like document implementation and the NED, we don't actually find out what NED is until.
Yeah, good call.
So just say non-equity deputy.
Yeah, and then in the very first one, the Theater Safety Initiative Development, in the very first sentence, that would be a good time to put TSI in parentheses up there first. Then that way, when it's referenced after that, then we kind of see it. Because otherwise, like throughout this document, TSI in the second paragraph, I had to go back and try and figure out what TSI was, and I found it at the top.
Right.
So, and I've got a question, and I'll probably have a follow-up after that, but when it says production starts when the show is selected, can you talk about why you say that? Is that because of, otherwise it didn't cover auditions? Or is there something even prior to that you had in mind?
Well, we had it phrased as just starting with auditions before. So we're talking about expanding to everything that happens before you even get to auditions.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does, and I think one of those things, so like during an audition process, if there's, an ideal process would be, you have the, if there's intimacy in the show, for example, that you would have the intimacy choreographer in place at the start of that to make a list of, to identify a list of like, this show will involve partial nudity or nudity, what those terms define and all of that, so that can then go and be part of the audition notice, because that's where that should be. And so in that case, if that's kind of the stuff that you're kind of trying to capture, then I think that would probably, we don't necessarily need an NED for that. It could be an intimacy choreographer role. And then also, it's not always the IC's role for that, but sometimes they're like with WIM, what we also do is we'll go through, and if there are certain things that should be called out in audition notice as far as like content advisories, we will also put something in, like, you know, this show involves some hate speech or it involves themes of this and this and this. And so those also go as part of the audition notice as well, so that people will, when they come to audition, they're going to know what's happening.
So are you suggesting a template for an audition notice would be maybe helpful as part of the back of this document?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that, but I think that would be great.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that was interpreted, therefore is valued. Sorry.
Just as far as go, I also am a fan of footnotes.
You are a fan? A yes fan?
Yes,
Okay.
big fan, love a footnote, more of a scavenger hunt than that.
I say hyperlink it, but you know, you do you.
But if you're reading physically.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to bring up that with the addition of going into from show selection versus the audition process, we're alienating the design process prior to audition again.
Oh.
Because a lot of times shows are in the process of getting a scenic design, props designers, all of those.
Yeah.
Before auditions happen a lot of times, or they're simultaneously happening, and so we're removing all of the designers with that.
Oh,
idea.
yeah, thank you, that makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense.
Yeah.
To me, the moment that this all should start is the moment that the mechanism around you to put the show on is moving, which to us would be the moment you decide your show. It's, attention is now on it, it's happening. That's the moment when standards need to kick in.
I could just talk about that. I think a lot of this comes down to what Hoppy was saying earlier about having, it might just be two separate roles. I mean, obviously you can't have a liaison before you, from the cast before you have the cast. But there might be a different role that is more of a original person, I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, like an HR
Yeah.
person.
I mean, with crew bringing in, if the liaison between the cast and crew was always chosen from the crew.
Yeah.
If you didn't have the cast.
Yeah.
Right. And I think too, like, crew often, all of that weight ends up going on your SM, right? And so on the tech side, everything ends up going to a person who is already so overloaded with so much to do all the time that having a individual person that is like, I am production side, non-ec deputy or whatever that means, what that title would entail. And then so that people, because I mean, like the difference, the experience is different for tech crew and production than it is going to be for the actors. So it makes sense to have a person from each sphere able to be the advocate for each of those spheres. Yeah, I don't know. The more we talk about it, I'm more like that idea, but then obviously that's adding another, well, but then also, is it a bad thing to have accountability of two people who are able to, you know, have the conversation together and know that they're two halves of a whole that are helping make production as safe as possible. So there was another thought that I had and then it went right out the window, but other than just that our stage managers are already overtaxed and adding another thing onto their shoulders is just, I think, unreasonable.
In the end, this is one of the problems with creating a document that everyone can use. Because we do have access issues here. There's a big difference between a big institution able to hire a PSO, a production safety officer who coordinates someone on the crew and someone in the cast, someone, you know, in HR or something. Not all theaters, of course, have the resources for that. So, and we'll get into this a little bit later on how to support all stages of theater, you know, from community theater to a big institutional professional theater. That is one of the things that we struggle with all the time, and that is one of the things that we appreciate your input and help on, is how to write something that everyone can use, even if they can't afford to hire 5 safety officers for each area of the production. So thank you for that.
Yeah, issues of access, issues of labor like that, could potentially be at least partially addressed through what's mentioned at the bottom here with the document breakdown of the actions. Whenever we have our forum on section or part 2, which has everything to do with the steps of production, audition process, workplace safety, intimacy, and all of that. There's a tactics section, which is basically in an ideal world, these are how the standards should be universally. And then actions will be the section for, well, we can't afford to have X and Y here, and this is what we did to do it. And that being said, whenever we get to that point, try to avoid specificity when you do make those comments or additions. Try not to be like, I worked at this theater and this specifically happened, X, Y, Z. Try to word it as, when you're in this situation, that who knows whether it's real or not, you could try this.
Yeah, and just speaking to Coleman's point as well about how it's gonna vary for different levels of different types of institutions. That's why I think we need to hear from all of those levels. So if you do have a connection, you know, I see leaders in the room here, of course, but if you do have a connection to a, you know, one of these bigger institutions, communicate with the people in charge of that institution to say, we want to know what would actually work. We're not going to dictate something and then try to hold you to it if it's just not reasonable, you know, yeah.
Yeah, there's a separation between each institution and their philosophy and beliefs. There's a lot of high schools that hold the belief that you are a technician and an actor. That you teach them all of that sort of thing. And then their safety, you have to bring up work days and stagecraft, things like that. So. Yeah.
Yeah, we really want expansion on our workplace safety chapter when we get to that point.
Yes. If no one else has any organic comments, I actually want to draw our attention to the concept of the signature process. That's been something that is kind of a big idea with this document, that we, again, it's still a little bit muddled for us. So the idea is that when we have this published version, now again, it's a living document, so it can always change, but now it's just in the draft phase. So not this version, but when we go through all these forums and make these edits with community collaboration and feedback, then we will have a document that we would like to present to the institutions in town on every level and ask for them to sign on and say, yes, I agree to these terms, basically. Now that's a big idea. So in practice, I just kind of want to ask you all how you think that could go, what you think some pitfalls could be with that. Now, of course, we've talked about a lot of stuff. We're all probably thinking some of the same things that could be tricky to deal with something like that. But also, one of our or committee members who's not here today, Emmy, she has made a good point about perhaps there's something that is not just companies signing on, but it's also community members signing on. And we've used like the language, like something like I make a pledge, which we don't really like, because pledge sounds like money, and we're not talking about putting money down. We're talking about I pledge to this too. So there's a lot of stuff that we can do with this, and we're just not sure exactly what that right answer is yet. But that's I want to open that up to conversation. How does that ring for everyone? Yeah, Stephanie.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about that because you don't want it to sound like you must sign this or you're not a good theater person to work with. I wonder if it's something that is like a feather in your cap type of situation. Like we have read this document and it is in good faith, we are doing our best to follow these practices or already having started this case. So it's not like because this exists, we're doing it begrudgingly.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
And so we have 3 minutes left before our breakdown. Thank you.
We also make a point to say in the document itself that it's not legally actionable.
Right, yeah.
It's only advisory.
Go ahead. What happens if the document is signed or is sent but not signed? And even yet the producer writes his own letter to you guys saying you're full of shit.
Yeah.
We just take it on the chin, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point that I thought about a lot, because there's no enforcement mechanism really, but I agree with you, Stephanie, in terms of it being something that theaters can use as a way to show theater community members that they have adopted these guidelines. And it's not a contract that the theater has signed with the committee. It's that we stand by these guidelines, we support these guidelines, and it can be sort of a stamp. I sort of envision this like emblem on a website where it's like we have signed on to the Kansas City Theater Safety Initiative. These are the things that we support. And that can be a gesture and a sign to members of the community who want to work with organizations who have signed on to that. And it can be completely voluntary on all sides, but I think that we should use this as a carrot and not as a stick.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a space for a production level sign on, whether for independently produced shows or for a theater that has not signed on to this to say this production follows KCTSI guidelines?
I think that's a great idea. And even thinking about individual directors, Casey, to your point about
do individuals want to sign on to this? I mean, there are things that I have wanted to take on myself as a director that have not been imposed upon me by a theater company or anyone telling me what to do. It's just based on the feedback that I've heard from the community that in my productions, I want to adopt certain things. And I think that's something that you could put on an audition notice. This director or this production is, has signed on to or has adopted the guidelines of the theater initiative.
If they have if they already have their own set of internal standards as well, if it could be a thing where they say, we're working with KCTSI in conjunction with our own internal processes. It's not meant to replace anything. It is meant to work with whatever you have. And if you have nothing, then it's everything for you. Yeah. I don't know what order all this is.
Yeah, we're
Well,
we are.
I'll hop you and then we are running out of time.
That's
So we
totally
can
fine.
write those ideas down as well.
Submit them to-
And I know as someone who works around here, to me, this document feels more like a promise to the workers that their safety is the priority. And it is less about holding people accountable and more making it known to people that they can opt in to work at places that they know that they feel safe and they know that they have assurance of what exact levels, like what exact standards of safety they should expect to go into. Because right now, you don't know until you work somewhere.
Well, there's your vision statement right there.
Say what again?
Careful.
We can see where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are at time for this section. Obviously, I think we have a lot more to talk about. Now we're going to be getting into some bigger meat here. So we probably will run out of time for each individual section, but let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break now and then we'll get to the last little bit here. Okay, thank you, everyone. Yeah, no, ignore that. We'll go ahead and barrel on through here to the end. We have about 40 minutes left. So our next section last section that we're addressing today is the path to resolution, and Connor is going to talk about that.
This one is beefy. Thankfully, we've kind of been talking about some parts of this already, but we're just gonna go through it. The path to resolution. Incidents can occur at any level of severity. The goal of the document is to be able to respond appropriately to any hiccup or roadblock in the process. Transparency and clear communication is important. Some small incidents can be handled in the moment by utilizing the ouch oops method, as detailed later below. Other incidents can be major or even systemic. This is when we count on the offended person to come forward with transparency to let the proper channels know what is happening without fear of retribution. Clear record keeping and an investigative, impartial attitude are needed. We refer to the overall process as the path to resolution. This is also called the concern resolution path in the Not in Our House Chicago Theater Safety Standards document. A lot of the processes are taken from this, including ouch oops. So if you want further reference for that, you can search that out. It's also linked, I believe, in the reference page in the document online. So the process, the path to resolution provides names and contact information for members of the organization and the specific production who have agreed to be responsive to the reported issues and to work to resolve them. It includes, but is not limited to, a written, clear, and transparently shared list of procedures for addressing concerns, a written, clear, and transparently shared list of persons with whom the concern should be addressed, and a commitment to give reported concerns priority and a reasonable timeline for resolution. From the start of every project, so this would be show selection, from the moment of show selection, TSI resources should be provided by the company to the director, who will then pass it on to their cast and crew. Within the first week of rehearsals, a member of the project will be voted on as the non-equity deputy, or NED. The non-equity deputy and the stage manager, 2 different people, are expected to be the first points of contact should an incident occur. Should an incident escalate beyond ouch oops, which is in the moment, an investigations committee will be formed, which should include the stage manager, NED, director, and a member of the board or artistic committee. If the person reporting would prefer to remain anonymous, they may fill out a path to resolution form going over the incident in as much detail as they are willing. No matter how it's reported, it is expected to be investigated by the stage manager and the NED, and it is optional to involve KCTSI, the rest of the committee. The first optional step that will be requested in the event of an incident is a mediation session. The NED should be the person in charge of facilitating mediation. If mediation is not an option, we have outlined a series of steps that should be taken, including the reporter taking detailed notes and informing the investigations committee to begin an investigation. With that said, here's the ouch, oh, ouch, oops, whoa protocol. This protocol is a tool for acknowledging and addressing harm in a group setting. This will typically be during a rehearsal period. It can be utilized at the first sign of microaggression as an attempt to alleviate tension before a situation can escalate. The protocol is based on the following 3 moves. Ouch, say ouch to acknowledge that you've experienced harm, something was offensive, mean-spirited, etc. Oops, say oops in response to this to apologize if you've caused harm. Even if it was unintentional, things happen, people say things. Whoa, say whoa to acknowledge harm or structural oppression that you want to interrupt. So this would go beyond someone insulting you in public. When someone says either ouch or whoa, you should pause and allow the person who experienced harm to share their experience. It's important to be aware that explaining harm can be triggering, so make sure the person feels supported. And then next is our structure for the different levels that this might take. The first tier is direct address. Many concerns can be resolved through conversation with the parties involved. In an ideal world, 90% of problems can be solved this way. Tier 2 is the deputy. If the concern cannot be resolved at tier 1, the participant at tier 2, which is the NED, the stage manager, production manager, and director, should be granted a level of authority and trust to determine whether a concern can be resolved at tier 2 or if it needs to be escalated to tier 3. All concerns, even if it's resolved at this point, it should still be reported to the people at tier 3, even if no action was required in the end, just for good record keeping and transparency. Tier 3 is the higher management, and this consists of the artistic director, the managing or executive director, and the board of whatever company is putting the production on. And this should be considered the final level of the path, capable of resolving the issues that have not been resolved prior to reaching this stage. The path to resolution should be verbally explained and provided in writing at the first rehearsal, but you would also present this to your crew moment show is selected the moment you've assembled your crew. Digitally and or in print. Ideally, it would be both, I think. It should include the name, title, and contact information for every individual on the path to resolution. Individuals on the path to resolution must keep all information confidential and not communicate it to outside parties. And then for record keeping, the producer should be the record keeper. It should maintain personnel files, which include reported concerns, which are kept confidential and accessible only to the individual or individuals responsible for the files. Additionally, we encourage companies to make KCTSI aware of serious concerns which escalate to the path to resolution so that we can maintain our own personnel files with as much accuracy as possible. This legal remedies, I'm not going to mention all the ones that are listed here, but these are just the options you have. In the event of civil or criminal misconduct or liability, the TSI, the document, is not a replacement for legal advice or action. If you are seeking legal advice or advocacy resources, we recommend reaching out to the agencies below, which are listed there. And then our final notes on implementation, just some more tips and reiterations of how this process should be. Producers should complete a path to resolution with a form with the names and contact information of all individuals who will serve on the path to reach production. And I believe we have this document template at the back of the full document. And it's just little boxes essentially with no borders that just has their title and the name that you put and contact information. The path to resolution is a tool to help create communication pathways to prevent and resolve issues, not create divisions. Nothing in this document encourages firing or marginalizing participants for mistakes, a momentary loss of temper, an argument, a single unintentional injury, etc. The path to resolution is designed to provide pathways to respond to events behavior and conditions that create reasonably understood unsafe conditions, not necessarily uncomfortable situations. Acknowledging that there can be some bleed over, and that will require good faith and a clear mind. The function and goal of the path to resolution should be discussed at first rehearsal. It should be updated for each production. All individuals that are listed should know that they are listed going in, and they should understand what their roles are with regards to the tier structure. Using this it assists with record keeping, and the individuals listed on the path to resolution should be provided with resources and or training in conflict resolution if they don't already have it. That's it. Yes, Luke.
I can speak loud, yay! I want to compliment and uplift a hobbyist comment before we took a break about, I think having 2 people versus just 1 is really, really good. And this is sort of, I guess this is where my brain is now going. If one was a cast member and one was a crew member, I think to kind of get like a well-rounded ear in the space that maybe you said that a Hoppy, I'm sorry if you did, but just to kind of continue to uplift that comment, it's just really good reading this. I would like to know from your perspectives, because it sounds like this was a conversation among you. Defining unsafe versus uncomfortable seems really important. And I know, I mean, I've been in shows where it's been unsafe versus uncomfortable, but I want to know as a collective, what did that conversation look like or sound like with that particular bullet point?
I don't know that we really had a big conversation about that.
It's okay.
Did we?
Yeah, I don't think that we did actually on that part specifically.
But yeah, that is really notable because, right, that's how we can get into like,
It's hard, I know.
yeah, it's such a gray area, right? And it's very subjective. Maybe there's some language that can be defined better in the glossary that we could kind of get into what that could entail.
Sure.
Maybe.
I can speak anecdotals to this because I've used this language in my own current rehearsal process. I've told them my cast time and time again, I promise you will be safe. I cannot guarantee that you will be comfortable because some of the things, particularly given the subject matter of our show, which is about the Columbine school shooting, is that they will be asked to do things that are uncomfortable. They will be asked to say words that are not words that they want to use on a daily basis, words that I don't want to hear them use on a daily basis. We established safe words. My students, in place of slurs, would say pancake because it would signal to my stage manager that they knew the line, they knew that a word went there, but we had a collective agreement that we would insert a safe word, essentially, so that they could take those risks and make those acting choices without saying words that put them in a bad place psychologically. And so that they didn't have to yell slurs at their fellow castmates for 8 weeks. They only had to do it for 4 days, So those were some of the things that I've put into practice with my cast. And then, I mean, safety, I've just really focused on the physical safety. But we've taken time to work through the emotions that come along with this process. But I think talking about the distinction between safety and comfort is very important in all areas of theater, but particularly for actors who are asked to do things that will naturally take them out of their comfort zone.
Very good.
Yeah. I'm hoping in practice that uncomfortable situations will be basically covered by that first tier of the Dressel and the ouch, oops, low. And anything that's directly unsafe would be anything else.
That's interesting. Okay.
And I think what you just said, Ashton, I almost want to put that in the document. I promise you will be safe. I cannot promise you will be comfortable.
Yeah,
I think that's really helpful language for me to hear. I don't think I've heard that in a production setting before. Cool.
Well, absolutely, theater is not meant to be comfortable a lot of times. So in my experience using Forge Repertory Company used ouch oops in our first and only season before COVID killed us. But one of the things that we found implementing this process in practice was that an ouch call is important. Whether it is because somebody did unintentionally or intentionally attack you or make you feel unsafe. But it was okay for uncomfortable moments too. There's nothing wrong with saying ouch in a situation that in the end, we may have to repeat every night. That first time, that first ouch was useful to talk over how you were feeling and process that. It isn't a failure. It's a tool that helps you explore. And then the next time it comes up, if it is necessary to the show, it doesn't necessarily have to get an ouch, but we did acknowledge the feelings the first time and we worked through those feelings together as a company. And that in itself is what made it a safe moment and still an uncomfortable.
I'm wondering too, ways that we can adjust or add to the language to provide a similar structure for production crew. Because a lot of the times when we're talking about unsafe conditions for production crew, they're ones where their literal physical safety is at risk. If they're hanging lights, if they're climbing up in the rafters, if they're doing like some subflooring stuff where they have to go underneath a stage that who knows how well it's been maintained. That kind of stuff, I feel like ouch, oops, whoa could be very helpful when we're discussing ideological things, when we're getting into the meat of a script and that kind of stuff, but we also have to confront it on like what Taylor was saying, a human safety level as well.
I'm wondering about the role of the stage manager, especially bringing them in as a medium. And I'm wondering about it on a high school level and on a community theater level, because I've had some stage managers I wouldn't want at all in that position. And you're almost asking them to load up on their law school a little bit, and also that make them feel uncomfortable because of that they may have a lenience more towards the actor or the actors or more towards me. And I just don't know if some of the stage managers I've worked with in the past would be a good choice for that.
Yeah. I think you're right, that we're all human, right? We all have our own skill sets, but I do think that's where creating a universal framework that everyone can sign on to does help with that, whether it be ouch, oops, whoa, using a safe word, or I know at other theaters, I've used like fences and the stoplight method of, my fence today is that you can't touch my breasts. I'm having a day where I'm willing to say this word or do this thing today, or I'm not ready. We did blocking today for the first time. I can get there. I'm a yellow today, but a week from now I'll be a green or whatever. But I think establishing that framework so that it's not the stage manager or a student's role to come up with that framework on their own. It's just, I am operating under the guidelines that we have all signed on to, we've all agreed to, and that's something that I also try to communicate with when I'm setting guidelines for my casts. I want to make sure that every single person who's involved in the process is in the room at the same time, and we have all heard the same thing. We all have the same expectations. I'm not holding you to a different standard than I'm holding Luke. So then it's not like the stage manager is expected to come up with this framework and carry all of that themselves. They have an understanding that everyone is supposed to sign on to. It's a collective responsibility.
That's also why we want the NED to be someone who is not the stage manager, to help alleviate that kind of responsibility that a stage manager maybe shouldn't have, for the reasons you mentioned, and also just because of the roles that they already have. knowing how it looks in practice, I honestly just don't know yet, though.
So in high school, you could use a faculty friendly. Another person of the faculty who can remain, equal balance.
Yeah.
To be clear, there's a lot of people on that path to resolution, and some of them absolutely in a high school situation should be adults.
Right.
There's a lot of different tiers and there's a lot of boxes to fill.
I know specifically in this moment, it's focusing on the stage manager, but there, again, like Coleman said, several people listed in that path to resolution. And, and there's like any company, there may be like someone on that path to resolution where you're like, I don't trust that person, like, it's kind of, it's everywhere, there's gonna be someone that is not, we would not consider trustworthy. And I think that that could be a part of, I'm just opening it up, that could be a part of like, if someone has to come forward and propose something and say like, I am not like comfortable with this specific, like with the director being involved in this conversation, I'm not comfortable with like just different people on the crew. So I think that there is a way to take that off of the stage manager while also just kind of, it is a learning curve for everyone. This document is a learning curve for everyone, from the executive artistic director, not down to, but like literally everyone on that list for production. This is a learning curve for everyone.
Something I just want to uplift in this moment is the fact that you do have a template at the end of the document as a resource. And I think this is one of those moments where having that within the structure of each organization, because no matter what, every organization is going to be different, especially if you are a company who is equity, but does different equity stage managers. That stage manager may not be the best person to go to when they are only there for one contract in a 12-month span. But having someone who is a business manager or somebody else who is there part of the staff, or having someone that has a little bit more inherent understanding of like how the building functions and the safety of a building or a space, having that list of here are the people to go to, and having again multiple people at every level listed. So person A, I may not be comfortable going to due to a personal disagreement we had 5 years ago, but I'm comfortable going to person B. Then that gives me person B to go to as a step 1 or a tier 1 versus then going just directly to tier 2 and that sort of thing.
Yeah, we do want you to exhaust everything before you escalate.
Yeah.
And and I might just totally be forgetting another portion of the document. But going back to the tiers. If the concern involves someone at tier 2, does that mean that it immediately starts as a tier 3 concern? Or do you go to someone else at tier 2 before going to tier 3?
That's a good question.
So really good question.
I know there is language somewhere in the document that talks about if someone has a conflict of interest, basically, if you're, which, who's going to acknowledge that conflict of interest, right? That's again, another tricky thing that is maybe on an individual basis, but we do have language somewhere that says, if you have a specific conflict of interest, then you should remove yourself from that particular conflict resolution.
I think that's towards the end.
Yeah.
I think I'm just blanking on a section that we don't have laid out.
We'll review
No.
it to make sure,
Yeah.
but in practice, what we always did was you started at tier 2. If the issue was with the director and they're in tier 2, you're gonna be talking to somebody else in tier 2. I can't remember if we've written that in here or if that's what I've ingrained in my brain as using documents like this. We'll look and make sure so that it's clear.
We have 5 more minutes until we reach our Q&A. Do we want to just continue on the conversation, or do we want to stop and switch gears to?
Let's go ahead and continue on for now. I'm not sure if we have a bunch of stuff going on in the Zoom. There's no questions in the Zoom or anything, so we can keep talking about this. We might take the last few minutes to just ask some general questions.
If you have questions that you didn't ask about previous sections. you can go back now.
Yeah. This is a brief comment related to the path to resolution. Maybe I'm totally missing this. Under the process, we've got those 3 really great clear bullet points. There's a sentence, and there's another sentence. This is in reference to the second sentence underneath the 3 bullet points. It says within the first week of rehearsals or within you know, as we've been talking about today, the revision of like the production, beginning of the production selection. A member of the project will be voted on as the NED. Who's that voting body? Did we talk about that?
We did.
Yeah.
It could be clearer, it's understood to be the people in the production.
Okay.
In the content, go ahead.
Yeah. My thought is that it would be a democratic process in the casting crew that everyone just kind of agrees on.
Okay.
I was part of a show last year that unofficially tried some elements of this to see how it works, and that was what we did to pick our Ned, who was someone in the cast, and we were, it was very fast. We were all in agreement, like, oh, this person and the director already know each other, so they would be able to communicate with each other directly and clearly.
Yeah, I was just curious.
It could be clearer in the language though.
Yeah.
That's all right.
First, in regard to that, I think it specifies a little bit more about the voting section 4 when we talked about the. But my point was, I think it would be helpful when you first bring up the PTR document or template to say where to find that. When you were talking about it, you said where to find it, but in here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to that point as well, there's a little bit of language muddling there too, because the PTR, the way we kind of refer to it in here is sort of a little bit broader than it needs to be. So there's the PTR as it relates to the template that we do currently have at the back of the larger document, the full document, that is just the list of people, that just is those titles. What I think we talk about a lot in here that we don't have developed yet is a form that someone can fill out if they have, like filling out the path to resolution. Right now, it kind of means two things, and we don't intend for that to be the ultimate, like that needs to be clarified for sure, that we'd like to be able to provide a template that someone can fill out anonymously or not, that says, I have this is my complaint form, basically. And then there's also just the PTR as it is right now in the document. These are the names, these are the contact information for these specific people.
A report form, PTR report.
Yeah.
Does the tier form, will address who can fire at what time? As the rising of the tier, I mean.
Oh, like what triggers it?
Yeah, I'm thinking of one incident where, well, a gal, just kind of really destroyed the whole community we were trying to build within the cast. And, at that point on, she was a wreck, and I wish I would have fired her. And that may not be so much concerned about any kind of sexual abuse or anything like that, but it was those kinds of things that when you say, I have to fire this person, because in the theater, we fire people for very strange reasons that don't happen outside of it. Is there places for firing where we're protecting the producer, the director, things like that?
Yeah, thanks, Ash.
I just know we can't advise.
I'll preface this by saying this is not.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's where your contracts with your actors come into play. And if you want to use this as a reference document and say violations of the policies outlined in the KC Theater Safety Initiative will be grounds for termination, that's where you would communicate that.
Is it too far for us to generate a document like that?
I think that it could be beneficial to include, draft language that could be included in your contracts with your actors or with your production team. But that would be the enforcement mechanism that I would recommend.
Thank you, Ash.
That's really good. That's good.
Questions over things maybe that we haven't, not necessarily path to resolution, but things maybe that came up for you earlier that we didn't get to cover.
Under the how to use this document, I mean, we touched on a signature structure, and how people would or wouldn't sign on to the initiative. Something that I just typed out in the break was like, is there a way to get a signature structure based on having a cast representative sign it, a crew representative sign it, a venue representative sign it, and some kind of arts administrator sign it. And you have those spaces, but then it would be different tiers of companies and projects would require like different representatives. So for example, if you didn't have one of those reps, you could write just not represented in the sections. Just as a thought, I don't know, I was just trying to think about your signature setup, and I know because you're making this so accessible, it's amazing. Also trying to think about, well, if someone's independently producing a production, like I know I'm getting ready to produce my first musical next year. And I'm like, well, it's pretty exciting. Do I sign as the arts administrative person, someone who's gonna be in the cast, et cetera, et cetera. So just thought I'd throw that out. Stuff I thought about.
Yeah, can you send that to us too? Can you email that?
Yeah,
Thank
I was gonna put it in.
Yeah, that'd be great, that'd be great.
My guess is.
Oh, hang on, Connor. Obviously, sorry.
I'll pass it to you in just a second. I was also on that line thinking that if we can provide more, rather than these are the people who need to be part of tier 2, a list of options of people who could be at tier 2 so that each theater could make a decision of who to include in theirs based on their resources and what they have accessible.
Yeah. Sounds like both the production manager and the director.
Right.
At the same time.
Maybe.
Yeah. My
And their antics?
my initial feeling on having multiple people sign is that besides showrunners and producers and directors, I think it would be their purview to get cast members to then sign. My initial gut reaction is that if we ask an individual to sign in addition to the company agreement that's already been signed, that's maybe giving us too much of an eyeball on them. It's kind of implying that we're big brothering them a little bit, that we're not a legally enforceable entity. So I would say, with what you're saying, with who has firing power, I think who has firing power would hand on anything else that people in the production would have to sign.
I have I'll let Taylor go.
It almost seems like from what your experiences get with going in to do your own show, there almost needs to be 2 separate ways to potentially sign this. One is like a year-long producing for a full season, and one is like a by show. And I think that may be a template that may be useful for those that are long-term producing companies that we're looking at. For our full season, we are going to commit to this.
Yeah.
Versus especially like when we get into Fringe, all the different individual producers doing it one-off for them for that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
I just had a quick question too. So when we were talking, I really love the idea of having like a seal or something, you know, that you have that represents that you are part of that. Is the signature process part of that, or is that like we agree to that and therefore, or we're just talking through the idea?
Yes.
Yes, right, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
The idea would be that, yeah, the signature as a result of signing, then we would say, okay, we'd like you to, you know, here's this emblem. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and as like a space or, you know, like Fringe, we're using other people's spaces. You know, I just have questions around how that would work for us. Where we can hold what we are doing responsible, but we can't necessarily hold all the different persons. Is this the form? Is this the feedback form? No.
No, I believe it is, yes,
That's
yeah,
okay.
that says like section, page number, that.
On the section.
No, you have to, it instructs, it's just a pain in the butt because of the limited capability of,
You just have to type.
you have to copy paste it. Yeah,
Unfortunately.
yeah, that was the best solution we could come up with. Thanks, Audrey.
In regard to the sign on or stamp of KCTSI or whatever, is there potentially a place where in the future KCTSI would be saying, we cannot recommend this theater or this producer? If obviously that is not what we're hoping, but knowing that there are issues in the industry, that's something that could come up where someone is saying they abide by these rules but are not following things like that. Is there a place where that's maybe reported to KCTSI and is that?
Yeah, that's, you're bringing up something that I didn't get into yet with like the how to use this document that I think is like a bigger conversation. We've talked about what the accountability measures are that we are capable of. And one of the main things we've talked about is just putting names on our website. It's just saying these people have signed on. So we've also, of course, talked about, well, what do we put the names of the people who haven't signed on? You know, what is that? I'm a big fan of like a letter writing campaign as well. Like if someone is just not working with us, they are going to hear from us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, why? Right,
Just
yeah, yeah.
rescind their signature, you know?
Yeah, people could rescind their signatures anytime too. Yeah, so I think that's a longer conversation that we want to flesh out in maybe the next forum or just hear from you. You know, hear ideas as we go. Yeah, thank you for that question though. Yeah.
And one thing on your question about fringe, I think it's the same answer that I gave Phil about. That would be something then you'd say the fringe as a whole has adopted these. We expect you as individual producers, as individual basic, and I'm not sure venues, that's tricky. That's probably a whole separate side conversation, but in terms of producers who are working in those spaces, it would be a similar conversation, like here are the flow down clauses that we would expect you to abide by.
I think my board was just wondering about that, and when they saw the initial document, they're like, we can't even get people to read our 4-page production manual that
Right.
it's a like have to have. So
No one ever reads it.
finding, and I even wondered about the potential of like, a survey, like something that people read and then, like, I don't know if you've ever had a corporate job, but sometimes you read a little training and then you read that and you fill it out and take a quiz. And when you pass the quiz, something simple like that, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think, and this is just me speaking, I'm riffing here, but I think that those kind of things are the ways in which this committee could work with other theaters to say, I mean, like what Casey mentioned, or the coterie said, we've put together a huge list of things that we want to do now. Does this align with what you've already put together? And I think that's kind of in the similar vein, like this is the spirit of what we're doing. While you Fringe have signed on to more of a comprehensive document, what you're asking for your individual producers to do may look different than what you as an entity are committed to doing. And not necessarily because they can't, or not because they don't want to, but because it doesn't make sense given the timeline, given the things that they're doing. So anyway, that's just me riffing right now, so.
I think that in the future, and this is very early, but I think in the future, it would be lovely that the Kansas City Theater Safety Institute could have a little bit of a training thing. That somebody could go through the training and that would help the theater understand what we're talking about. But it's a ways down the road. I think for us, we're still trying to get our document together.
Oh,
But I think it's a wonderful idea. I also think that one of the dangers about thinking about this punitive carrot stick situation, where someone signs and then they're not following the agreement and we gotta go chase them down, or, somebody has to, or there's reporting and all of this. I think it gets in the weeds really quickly. And the idea and spirit behind this is a theater wants to be a part of this. They will reach out and say that they want to be a part of this, and we're happy to say that they are a part of it. And they get a logo and they can tell everyone that they're a part of it. If we suddenly have 15 actors and 3 crew members reaching out to us saying, hey, we're at this theater that is doing all these things that isn't in this agreement and they have the logo, that's a conversation we're gonna have with that theater. But I don't know that, like, we're not an enforcement body. We're an advisory body, and we are a body that is trying to help everyone get on the same page. And the people that want to be on the same page are gonna reach out to us. And they're gonna wanna say that they're on that page, and I think that's important. And so if you look at it as something that people will pursue and want to say they're a part of, I think that makes it a little bit easier of a conversation than like having to worry about oh, they signed it and they're not doing it, or we gotta go find them and all of that. Just as far as a perspective.
Yeah. And I think we are at time. Obviously, there's a lot more that we could get into, and we will get into a future forum. So,
Thank you all.
yeah, I just want to say, thank you all for coming. Thank you to the committee for being here today. I'm very happy with this, and tell your friends, please share your experience today. Share with us what your experience has been like. We want to be able to grow this and develop this and see twice as many people at least next time we do this forum. So yeah, thank you all so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.